All right, now we are going to practice solving quadratic equations. So, solving quadratics. When we solve, we are finding roots. We are finding zeros. We are finding intercepts. They may ask you to find the roots, find the zeros, find the x-intercepts. They all mean the same thing, but they may just say solve, and it means all this as well. So I'm going to give you four examples, four different ways to do that. The first equation that I have is x minus 4 times x plus 2 equals 0, and they want you to solve. The other thing you can say is we are solving for x. The great thing about intercept form is we already know what the intercepts are. Not only that, I know that I can separate these two and say x minus 4 equals 0 and x plus 2 equals 0. I can add 4 to both sides. X equals 4. Subtract 2 from both sides. X equals negative 2. Put an or between, and those are your two answers. You didn't even have to do all this work, though. You can just look at this and be like, oh, I know that the x-intercept, since there's a negative here, remember, x minus p times x minus q, that means this is a positive 4. X minus q, there's not a minus sign here, that means it must be a negative number, x equals negative 2. Either process works. Another type of problem you might see is 4c squared minus 400 equals 0. Well, now we're in standard form, so we have to do a little bit of work. This would be one where we're going to solve by factoring. The first step that you want to do in factoring always is factor out the GCF. Well, they both have a 4 in common. So I can pull out a 4, and I'm left with c squared minus 100 equals 0. Now, 2, it's a binomial with a minus sign. I got to check to see if I have perfect squares. C squared is a perfect squared, and 100 is a perfect square, so I've got difference of squares here. I can then factor to c minus 10 times c plus 10. And don't forget your greatest common factor. Now I can split this up. I've got 4 equals 0. Well, that's not true. That's just going to go away. You could have also divided both sides by 4 and gotten rid of it that way as well. Either way, you're left with just c minus 10 times c plus 10 equals 0. Split those up. C minus 10 equals 0, or c plus 10 equals 0. Add 10 to both sides. C equals positive 10, or we subtract 10 from both sides. That should have been a 0. Subtract 10 from both sides and we get c equals negative 10. And there's our answer. The third way to solve could be by completing the square. So we have an equation, x squared plus 2x minus 3 equals 0. And it explicitly says that we have to solve by completing the square. First step, make sure that a is equal to 1. If a does not equal 1, you cannot use complete the square. Second step, you add c to both sides. Got to get rid of the c. X squared plus 2x equals 3. Now I have to find my new c. I take c equals b over 2 squared. So 2 divided by 2 squared. Well, 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 squared is just 1. So my new c is going to be 1. I have to add 1 to both sides. X squared plus 2x plus 1 equals 4. Now I can factor this side. I get x plus 1 times x plus 1. 1 times 1 multiplies to 1. 1 plus 1 adds a 2. Since they are the same binomial, I can write it as x plus 1 squared equals 4. I take the square root of both sides. X plus 1 equals plus or minus 2. Now I have to split this up. X plus 1 can equal positive 2, or x plus 1 can equal negative 2. Subtract 1 from each side, x equals positive 1, or subtract 1 from both sides, x equals negative 3. And there are my two answers. The last way that you might be asked to solve a quadratic equation is using quadratic formula. So say we had the equation 2x squared minus 7 equals x. In order to solve using quadratic formula, one side of the equal sign must equal 0. So I'm going to get rid of this x. I'm going to move this x to the other side. I get 2x squared minus x minus 7 equals 0. Now I'm good and I can start quadratic formula. Remember, quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Doesn't matter if you sing the song, you say the little story, as long as you remember that, you will also be given this on your formula sheet. So now I know that a equals 2, b equals negative 1, and c equals negative 7. And I can plug those numbers into this equation. X equals negative 1 plus or minus the square root negative 1 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 7 all over 2 times 2. So I get x equals negative 1 is positive 1 plus or minus the square root. 1 squared is 1. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8 times negative 7 is positive 56. So negative 2 times, or negative 4 times positive 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 times negative 7 is positive 56. All over 2 times 2, which is 4. So x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of 57 divided by 4. These are your exact answers. It's 1 plus the square root of 57 over 4 or 1 minus the square root of 57 over 4. On the test, they may ask you for an approximate answer. In that case, you would need the calculator. So you take your calculator and you want to find the square root of 57. So the square root of 57 is 7.54. I'm going to say we're just going to leave it as 7.55 because that 9 I'll round up. So this is x equals 1 plus or minus 7.55 all over 4. So now I'm going to split it up into two equations. X equals 1 plus 7.55 divided by 4, or x equals 1 minus 7.55 divided by 4. 1 plus 7.55 is 8.55 divided by 4. 1 minus 7.55 is negative 6.55 all over 4. Put those into your calculator. Negative 6.55 divided by 4. X is equal to negative 1.64. 8.55 divided by 4. X equals 2.14. There are my two answers. So again, these are my approximate. I put them in the calculator. I've rounded them. I've truncated them. They are approximate answers. This is the exact answer. And those are the 4 different ways that you can solve a quadratic equation. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and you guys can ask me any last-minute questions before the big day starts on Wednesday.